Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to everybody. It is good after a good day. Good day is just so much easier. I think I might start saying good day. Don't they say that? Good day, Tampa Bay. Maybe we should avoid that. Anyway, good afternoon. We'll start as we customarily do with our top sponsors, and a special thank you to those. Listed among them is FPEA, and I have news that hopefully around January 1st we will be officially adding to that list. So stay tuned for more of that. We appreciate all of the support that we get. In fact, I would love to start by also mentioning one of our other new additions. You head on over to the, let me actually, oops, I messed that up. Let me head on over to our share screen. Yeah. This is our recognition wall where we recognize all of the vendors who decide to sponsor us and what we do. HEF is solely funded by those who decide to support us and sponsor the work that we do. Our mission and vision are clear on the recognition wall, and we've added a brand new one today to the list, which is Class Source of Tampa. I was looking here, and I was like, Sue has done a great job helping spread the word down in Palm Beach. Oh no, my notifications thing came on. I hope that doesn't keep happening. Uh, I'll have to figure out where that soundbite is embedded. That's not. Anyway, I just noticed that Hillsboro needs some love. So I'm going to try to make some calls and see if there are some home education instructional programs and vendors in Hillsboro. We've got the Hive, and I think we've got another one here somewhere. But most of these are from Broward. So Sue, hats off to you for doing all of the word spreading that you're doing for us. We really appreciate all of the work that you do. And Dina, thank you for bringing ClassSource on as an official sponsor. I want to give you some shout out love. And without further ado, Brenda, good day. How are you? Good, good. You say that, but then right before we got on stream, you were telling me how your car just got swiped. I think people don't realize we're not. Yeah, a brand new car. Yeah, we're not talking heads. We're humans, and we have things going on. Well, I appreciate all the more you being with us this morning or afternoon today. Why is that such a struggle? Be with us today as we dive into some things. Obviously, I have been really shocked, to be put it bluntly, that there are still people who are discovering um, HEF for one, but also discovering all the content that we've been putting out on in general in general on PEP and home education and things like that, because this has been going on. This has been a hot topic for a long time. Like, I would say probably the majority of 2023 has had PEP as a hot topic for home education at this point. Um, and we're just now, like, there are some people who are coming out of the woodworks going, somebody's got to know about this. Somebody help take care of this. Like, there's got to be. And we're like, yeah, we've been on it the whole time, the whole time with regular updates and information. Like, where have you been? Where have you been? Where have you been? So,
It's so hard to get the word out that we are working so hard, three of us working so hard to keep home education and parental rights free in Florida without regulation, without any kind of encumbrances. And yet we're such a hidden treasure,
yeah. Yeah.
and all the hard work that we're doing is simply not um, connecting with the people that we're working for. And that's really sad, because a lot of people are floundering with questions and have no
Hmm.
idea where to go or who to contact. And yet we're here answering those questions and
Hmm.
fighting for your rights. And so you need to spread the word. Anybody listening to us today, tell your friends.
Yes, certainly. Yeah, we have, what is it? I think before COVID, we had right around 100,000, maybe 90,000 or something like that, students in Florida that were home educated, and I think it's up to 150,000 now. That's a massive, massive leap. Um,
There's probably more than that. They just don't give us those numbers until the end of the year, so we don't know
right?
what they are. We know what they were for last year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. It's a lag measurement. It comes afterwards. So the number has probably grown. I know families that um, have started recently too. After that statistic has come out. So anywho, we're here and we're here to help. There's a lot that we can do. We've been building the forum. I think is a great place, and I owe we owe a lot of thanks to that being put together. To I mean, I built it, but my wife has been the one to kind of make it what it is and flesh it out.
She
She's put
is the one.
she has put so much time and effort into that with such detail. One of the things that often irritates me about her is how meticulous she is and detailed. But that's one of the most beautiful things about her when it comes to things like this is that makes her so good at these things. So it is one of those things that she is so good at, and she has applied all of that energy and effort to that. So there's a robust amount of information, detailed, up to date, accurate, and you would look at it and think it would take a team of people to do it, and it probably should, but she has shouldered that on her own. So it is totally impressive how much information is there. If you find someone who has yet to dive in, or they come into a Facebook group and they're like, "Oh my goodness, somebody's got to do something. There needs to be tracking on this and information, and we need help." Like there is so much of that that exists in that forum, and the promise from us is that that information is up to date and as accurate as anyone can hopefully even get on the subject. So if you need it, if someone needs to dive in and they need to be brought up to speed, it's an absolute free and accessible resource for them. The website obviously is there to help spread the word for what we do, and of course the support there so that people can help us make sure that we do this ongoing. But there's also our Facebook community where there's the live streams that we do. We offer um, meet and greets virtually. So if you have a home education instructional program or community that you would like for us to speak to, but travel may be difficult. If you want to set up a virtual opportunity for that, we can set those up. If you have a group of new homeschooling families that just need to understand what their rights are when it comes to legislation, and they need the confidence, that is something that we offer as well. I don't know that we've ever really talked about some of those things on the live stream, but they are a part of what we offer. Um, and there's just so much, especially when it comes to things like the legislation and following it or bringing people up to speed on it, answering questions they might have. Uh, all of that stuff is right in the wheelhouse of exactly what it is that we do. All right, that being said, someone says, now that we have funds coming in pretty quickly on the easy stuff, I got to remember to add a monthly donation to our budget. Oh, thank you, Shara. Yeah, we would appreciate that. Thank you so much. That'd be wonderful if everyone who did that. That'd be even better. Um, Crystal, Brenda, where should we dive in this morning?
Well, I think we should
Afternoon.
start with some good news. What?
I keep saying in morning. Ugh. And
Oh,
then I've got your voice in my head slapping me around going, it's not morning. Sorry, go ahead.
I think we should start with some good news, Crystal.
Okay, so one of the pieces of good news is that people are getting their reimbursements processed. I've been watching all of the Facebook groups, and for a long time, it was mostly people complaining about not getting their funds. And the last week or two, it has been a flood of posts of people saying, I finally got funds. So they're getting the reimbursements approved. They're getting the funds actually on the card. They're figuring out how to get the funds off the card and sharing their ideas of what worked for them. So that's definitely some good news. For people who are still waiting for reimbursements, that's hope for you that you won't just be waiting forever. There is movement happening, and I'm seeing the consistent posts about people who are actually getting their reimbursements credited to the cards. So it's good news.
Hey,
Yes.
Cherry.
So if people are not getting reimbursed, then there's most likely an issue with the way they've submitted it or the program that they have taken courses from, or a vendor that they're trying to get their reimbursement, to get reimbursed for. It's probably a problem with, I'm going to guess, you correct me if I'm wrong, but the vendor hasn't been approved. So if you have a home education instructional program or you have a product that you're selling, there's something within that way that you get approved so that the people who have purchased items from you can't choose you from the list because there's still a problem. So explain that a little bit further, Crystal. You understand this from experience.
Sure. So yes, you can submit a reimbursement as a parent for something that's not officially on the list, but then it requires a manual check. So the whole thing goes more smoothly if the provider or vendor themselves are already on that approved list, because then it doesn't require quite as much research on the processor's part.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the reimbursements that are getting put on hold or in, staying in review forever and then ask for additional documentation, it's because processors, sometimes it's the processor's error, honestly. They're asking for things that they shouldn't be asking for.
Mm-hmm.
But it's because the processors are trying to figure out what to do with that reimbursement and whether it qualifies and all of that. If you have a provider that's on the pre-approved list, that process becomes very simple, which is why from the provider side, I've been encouraging home education instructional programs to apply as a provider. I know some of them didn't want to. They didn't want to go through the effort to do that because they said they shouldn't have to. And it's true, you don't have to. Parents can submit reimbursements even if you aren't on the approved list.
That's great.
But we know from our conversations with Step Up and what they're doing on the technical side, like on the back end, that their goal is to automate as much of the process as possible so that the reimbursements can be processed more quickly. So if, as a provider, and there's a difference between a provider and a vendor. If you provide a service like tutoring, classes, anything service oriented, you need to apply as a provider. If you sell something, if you sell a product, then you need to apply as a vendor. If you do both, then you probably need to apply as both, because the vendors go into my scholar shop. They're selling actual products. The providers go into the provider marketplace, which is what they used to call the direct pay platform. So they're two separate things, and if you do both, then you might need to apply for both. But the goal would be to have as many vendors and providers approved and already in the system as possible, so that parents can just select them from the drop-down list. And on the processing end, a lot of that just becomes automated, and all it needs is a quick check from a processor, not a full manual review. And that would speed the process a lot. And you don't have to become, if you don't want to sell your services directly through the provider marketplace, you don't have to do that. But if you at least apply as a provider and get on their approved list so that on Step Up's end in their system, they have you there and they can see that you've been vetted, that makes the whole process so much quicker on the processing side, and parents will not have to wait as long for reimbursement.
Yeah, and so some of the issues, some of the common issues, not that we're seeing the issues come in, we're hearing from our contacts at Step Up, but some of the issues that we're finding is that as things are being submitted, they're not always being categorized correctly, and they take manual review. But then, like Crystal said, sometimes the person doing the manual review is, say, reviewing it because it was put in as curriculum or called tutoring, but it was actually a class at a home education instructional program, and so then they're reviewing it with the wrong criteria, and then it gets stuck there. And so it's important. There There's so many variables and factors. I think I say this almost every one of our podcasts where um, with private schools or public schools, things are standardized and streamlined. It's a one size fits all in a lot of ways. So here's the process, and here's the funding that goes to that process, and it's lather, rinse, repeat, and it's done like clockwork. And so the way that it issues is relatively systematic and similar, but the home education crowd is custom in every, literally almost every field. The ways that we go about making home education. We were talking about something the other day, and I was like, man, see that? That was just home education right there. And we were planning to do this and this today, but we just had an hour, and that hour became something instructional. So I get it. It's custom in every way, but that also makes it very hard to build a system that is a systematic process around accommodating all of those nuances. And so they're in the process of doing that, not us. But also as we engage with that system, that
Mhm.
is one of the leading reasons why there's a lot of hiccups that emerge um,
Yeah. And
in all the
also,
classes.
on the parent side, you want to be careful that you're actually providing exactly what the guide says you need to provide, and that it has all the correct information, because there are a lot of new processors. Step Up told us that they tripled their processing staff. I don't know how many they had to start with, so I don't know how many that actually is. But that means that they've got, you know, now this whole 2/3 of their processors are still training, right? They're new. So the more clear you can be with what you submit, the better, so that they don't get confused. I was just chatting with a parent this week, and she messaged me this morning and said it was approved finally, so I'm glad.
Yay.
But we were trying to troubleshoot why, because it was for a home education instructional program. We were trying to troubleshoot why it was getting kicked back, asking for things and saying they only approved part of her reimbursement. She was trying to figure out why. Well, it turned out that she was submitting only for what she had paid so far, which was for semester one, and it was that was notated on the invoice, but the invoice also had the full academic year date, and so the processor misinterpreted that and thought that the amount that she had paid was the full academic year, and that she had actually only paid half. And so they only reimbursed her for half of the invoice, if everybody is following me on that. So she had to go back and clarify, no, that amount I submitted is what I already paid for the half of the year. The dates for the full year were just at the top of the invoice, but I only
Mhm.
paid for this half, but I paid that full amount that's on the invoice. So because everything is so custom with home education, it can be confusing for the processors. So as clear as you can possibly be, I think in the end she went back to the home education instructional program and asked them for an invoice that only had the dates for that semester. Because as clear as you can be, the better, so that you aren't
Mhm.
confusing the processors.
Yeah, Shara
And
asks.
on that
Oh, go
note,
ahead.
we're working with some of the home education instructional programs so that they invoice correctly, so
Yeah.
that they can get paid instead of waiting until the end of the year.
Mhm.
If you've paid for the entire year up front, then Step Up's not going to pay for the entire year.
Up
And
front.
so the home education instructional programs need to show a quarterly payment or a monthly payment in order for them to get paid, for you to get paid.
Yeah. What the processor was telling this lady, apparently there's somewhere in the purchasing guide, there's a term that says they can't approve anything more than a certain period of time, like 60 days, 3 months, I don't know, it was something. That if you've paid ahead, there's like a time limit that they can only reimburse you for so far ahead. So that's why they were looking at her invoice and saying, well, you paid for the full year, but we can't reimburse you for all of that right now because it's past that time limit
Mhm.
of like paying ahead. So again, like Brenda's saying, if the home education instructional programs can provide just like quarterly invoices to people or semester invoices, then that would avoid that confusion.
And we
Um,
have workshops with Step Up where home education instructional program providers can go on that call with us and help work through some of those things. So if you're if you're working with one and they need help, if you know someone who runs one, they need help, like send them our way. We can help get them on that call, and they can get some of the additional help that they need.
Yeah, because their system is
For
set
doing
up to pay out once the service is completed, like Brenda was saying.
right.
So then
Yes.
that's just one of many nuances of things that if you are a home education instructional program, the call would be good to attend to like understand how the
Mm-hmm.
system works so that you know how to set up your invoices and set up your products in, if you are becoming a provider in the marketplace, how to set up your products in a way that allows you to be paid in a timely manner.
Mm-hmm. So Shara says, can we confirm that if a music lesson teacher has a degree, we can apply that under tutoring instead of electives? I'm wondering if those are all being held up for that reason.
So I had this conversation with somebody in a Facebook group. So to provide a context for this question, because there is a cap on the electives category, it's a $2,000 cap. Some parents wanted to do art and music, right? So they are trying to submit their music teacher, since they technically have a degree, submit that under tutoring so that they still have the elective cap amount to apply toward a different elective.
Mm-hmm.
I have told people I'm not sure that that workaround is going to work, because the processors are still going to look at it and see, well, yes, but it's music tutoring, and they might still recategorize it on their end as elective.
Okay,
So
maybe.
I don't know if that's going to be a workaround. I think it would depend on what processor you get, to be honest.
Yeah, that's definitely a
Because
question we can ask
even
on our call, though.
even though your tutor has your music teacher has the credentials to apply as a tutor, it's still a music lesson, which falls under the electives category, if that makes sense. We're hoping to
It's a
get
good
the
question,
caps
though.
removed, and then it wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
But for the meantime,
And for reasons like this. Yeah.
yeah. Did Brenda freeze? Oh yeah, there she goes.
No. She's here.
One point I'd
She's a little
like to make for the instructional programs that are still have concerns about getting on the direct provider list. One reason that you might want to get on there is because once somebody applies for your program, those funds are set aside in the payment schedule, so that at the end you don't end up, the parent doesn't end up coming up short to pay you. Does that, am I saying that in a way that
so the
somebody would
system,
understand it?
yeah, the system has a built-in safeguard where
it
when
earmarks the fund.
Yeah, it earmarks the funds and removes them from your available balance as a queue. So it's waiting for them to be processed. So like, let's say that they go ahead.
I was just going to say, on the parent end, what this looks like is as soon as you select a service from the provider marketplace, you'll see that amount removed from your available funds, whether you've actually already done that service, taken that class or not. They immediately take it out of your balance. The same with when you submit a reimbursement, even before it's approved, it immediately comes out of your available balance. That's so you don't accidentally overspend.
Right. And that's a safeguard for home education instructional programs. So as those get marked off, so other reimbursements don't. They don't know what the parents are spending on that they're about to submit for reimbursements for. So it's kind of up to the parents to understand and know and judge their budget. But if they accidentally spend more than that, or they submit reimbursements that are in excess of that, the home education instructional programs portion of the reimbursement is protected if they're a provider in the system, and that's how they set up having their pay taken out. So, that's all.
And for the same reason, they don't allow parents to cancel a service that they've purchased through the provider marketplace. It has to be canceled by the provider. That's a safeguard for the people like home education instructional programs, because they don't want parents buying a class with scholarship funds, taking the class, and then saying, "Oh, I canceled that," to try to get their money back. So that's another safeguard that's in place.
Not that anyone would do that, but that's not a thing you can do. So
and that's true of like Florida Virtual School as well.
Yeah. Delene we must have like a brainwave link that we're on together because she says, speaking of legislation, any clues to what the legislators are thinking or planning for the session that's coming this month? That was the same thing I asked you. I was asking you ahead of time if we wanted to speak on. Do you want to chime in on it?
I haven't seen anything. I looked over the weekend because they don't post the agendas until Friday afternoon for the next week. And some of the committees are not meeting yet in education. Generally, at the beginning of the committees before session, they have reports for the committee members to know how some of the programs are working and explain to them the laws and how it's supposed to work. And they're still sort of doing that. My gut feeling is, and I haven't seen anything, but there's been so much confusion from Bright Futures and the dual enrollment, the community colleges and state districts, that some of the stuff was not clarified in statute when it passed in January, that they're definitely going to have to go back and amend some of those other sections of law. One thing I'm looking at is I want to get clarification on the uniform transfer of credit rule law, and then the rule is still in place, but they've made some changes, which I think we can still argue that the school districts have to accept the credits from parents coming in from home education, but now they need to accept credits from parents who've had their children on PEP but want to put them back in a public school program for their junior, senior year. And there's not a real clarification on whether the districts have to accept those credits or not. We've never had the authority in statutes, or back in, I believe it was in 2002, it could have been 2004. My memory's a little fuzzy on dates. But I met with the Department of Education and with the SACS Accrediting Association, and we worked out a mechanism that is in the administrative code of how districts are supposed to validate credits from home education programs. And it is like a child comes in, they sit in the next sequential class, and if they make C or above in those classes, then the district has to accept all their credits, but they don't have to accept the grades. And I don't know how we would get around that, because home education grades are given by the parent with very little comparison to other students. You could say that, well, if they make A's in dual enrollment or Florida virtual school classes, and the parent says they have A's in all the other courses, then you should accept the grades. But I don't know that I can argue, or Jason or Crystal or whoever we're making the argument with would accept our interpretation of that, because there's a lot of competition. I mean, a lot of competition when it comes down to who gets to be valedictorian.
Yeah.
And I mean, parents fight over that kind
Yes,
of
they
stuff.
do.
Those kids have been in the public school. And I think we would have a problem forcing the grade issue, but I do think we need clarification, especially since now we have PEP parents. And so that's one section of law that I'm going to try to make sure, Jason and I will make sure that that section of law gets amended so that that's very clear. And and of course, we'll be watching all of that. But another thing that is moving through is from last year, the legislature told the Department of Education to reach out to all of the people in the state of Florida, including home education, to ask what laws that are currently on the books could be removed as far as regulations concerned. And I haven't put anything in. I had an idea about what to try to get removed because the districts hate. Let me repeat: the districts hate the law that is in there that requires them to meet with truant parents of truant students who have decided they want to home educate their children. And there are strong pros and cons on that. We don't want to deny any parent who has, their child's being bullied at school or their child just doesn't fit in from going into home education. And that's the reason they were truant. But on the other hand, we don't want home education to be the way that the public schools or parents dump their children into home education at 14. And then if they're just under the home education law, they could turn in an evaluation at the end of a year and be put on probation, and the child actually turns out 16 and they could drop out anyway, but for those last 2 years they're not getting education anywhere. So it's a huge issue. I've thought a lot about putting in that section where it said there's a whole section about what they do if somebody signs up into home education, and amend that to say that the school district has to offer them one of the choice scholarships so that they could go into, or at least make them aware of it. And so if the child is not doing well in a public school for whatever reason, then they could get a scholarship to go to a private school. To me, that is a better option than putting them in home education, and maybe the parent and the child wouldn't do well together in home education. So I'm just brainstorming that at this point.
Yeah.
So if anybody out there has any really good way to amend that section, it's 1003.26. I believe it's parens F. And this is like what the school district's supposed to do with truant students. And there's a lot of A, B, C, D, E, and then we come to F. And if none of the A through E work, then F is an option, is home education. But that was all there was back when we worked on that, was home education as an alternative to public or private school. And so now we have a lot of other options out there for parents. So that's the only thing I've thought of. I would like to remove it because the districts aren't doing it. So,
and not uniformly, especially.
Yeah, and not in the right way they should be doing it. But on the other hand, I just don't want to close the door for somebody whose child would do really well in home education and maybe do Florida Virtual School Flex at home, and the parents control that. So if anybody's got any ideas on that, we'd be open to and welcome any of your ideas, because often we can complain about problems, but the way that I've been successful in the legislature in the past is when there is a problem to go to them with a solution. And that's what I would really like to do. And there is going to be a bill we could put that in. So somebody who is really curious and has a legal mind and wants to try to help me fix it, then I'm certainly open to hearing your ideas.
Yeah,
We've vet a lot of this stuff over and over and over in our own minds before we ever.
And we take feedback from the community. We hear the emails come in, the contact forms get submitted through the forums, through Facebook messages. We take We hear, we listen. We do hear you. Yeah. Go ahead.
That's all that I'm aware of,
Okay.
those things. And so we'll be watching the legislative, bills and agendas and all of that as we go forward. There's a committee meeting this week, the week of committees, and then there's committee meetings next week, and then the session actually starts on January 7th, I think is the Tuesday. I haven't looked, but I'm pretty sure it's the 7th.
The 7th is a Sunday. So it would be the 9th, the second
The 9th.
Tuesday.
The 9th.
9th.
So we have a little bit of time, and the way some of this works best is to get to staff. And as they're developing the bills, they can bring these issues to the committee chairs and vet them with them there. I may need to schedule some appointments with the committee chairs and talk over the issue, and Jason will be going with me.
Yeah. Right along. Let's do it. Emily Lynn says in her comment, she says, I saw a comment on Facebook recently stating that PEP students would not be legally represented by HSLDA because PEP is a government program based in the home. Do you have any insight on how PEP affects our ability to be represented by HSLDA? I want to start by saying that we don't speak for HSLDA and what they will and won't do. They are able to represent whomever they choose to represent, just like any other law firm is available to represent whoever they choose to represent. I know that we have lawyers that are local to us that are not quote unquote home education lawyers, but that are very, very capable, very capable of handling some of these issues and can and would represent them. If they choose not to represent students who have PEP as a part of their membership, that's kind of their prerogative as a business to do, if that's how they've worded that they're going to do it or not. We don't really have a way of twisting their arm and making them. I think the crux of this is to understand there's an ideological form of home education, and then there's the legal statute description of home education. Ideologically, home education is we're not a part of the public system. We're not a part of the system. We educate at home. We have come to lovingly refer to that as parent-directed education because it's more descriptive. Home education is a very specific thing laid out in the statute. And if that's what they're protecting and that form is the only form that they want to protect, that's fine. They have other issues with things like what people call umbrella schools, which are technically private school students because legally those are private schools, etc. That gets them into a whole other world of answers that they have to provide to people who want or don't want a membership. But again, we don't speak for them, so that we can't tell you. However, PEP is what we call parent-directed education. It's a personalized education program. It functions and is written legally to mirror home education in statute. So whatever was written for home education that's there, the home education statutes, the opportunities that are afforded to them and given to them through those statutes, those rights and the flexibility, very specifically worded, have been mirrored by language to say all of those statutes mentioning this, this, and this are also available, are also applicable to students through the PEP. And we did that for a very specific reason, but it doesn't obligate anyone like HSLDA to provide their services to people with PEP. They are educating at home, just like legal definition of home educators are also educating at home. But ultimately, as a business model, it's their choice who they want to represent. I will say that there are more now. Even I saw some of them at the FPEA convention last year or this past year. And there's lots of other options, so you can reach out to any of them. And obviously, like we help try to make connections Not that we're saying that we have people who are in competition with them, but like your options are not necessarily limited. The other thing that I'd like to point out, and this is probably something Brenda could speak on better, is that I think having a law firm there to support you makes you feel good and secure in your choices and that you have representation. But the statutes are there to protect you. So what we do at HEF is we provide proactive protection. So we are watching the legislation. We are there to meet with parents to help remind them of what their rights are and how they can stand on their own 2 feet and speak with legislation in their backing and language. Ultimately, that's what a law firm does. It's an advocate for you on matters that they are legally informed about. Not that we're a law firm. We're not a law firm. But we follow very carefully the law, and we help to make sure that the laws are in your favor and continue to protect your rights where you go, all throughout Florida. So it's more of a proactive approach to securing your freedoms and your rights, to make your choices and to direct your families as you see you need in their education. HSLDA and other law firms in general are a reactive measure. So if something happens and you need representation and support, they are there. But many law firms are there to help do that. So I hope that answers it. Brenda, did say something you want to correct or chime in on? Talk too
Well,
much. Go ahead.
basically what you said is accurate. I just wanted to add to that is, as you've said, we perform different functions. And one thing that I have noticed over the years, if I go in as the lobbyist for the Home Education Foundation, and that we've been involved in creating the laws, many times the problems that arise, especially with the school districts, is a lack of education. And
Yeah.
so I can go in and say, I've gotten a letter from somebody and it says blah, blah, blah. Well, let me tell you what the law actually says and what your role is here. And talk through them. And usually I end up with friends. When
Yeah.
you go in as an attorney, there's automatically a wall
It's
that
an
goes up.
adversarial. It's 100% an adversarial approach. Yes.
And so frequently it has happened that when they do that with the district contact person, they can't talk. It's bumped up
Mm.
to the legal staff. And that's the last thing the legal staff at the school district wants to deal with. So it's much
Yeah.
better if we can deal with that. And I've gone in and talked with school board members. And
Hmm.
um, one particular school board meeting that we had, and I went in, they were only going to give 3 minutes to every speaker because there were a lot of people that were up in arms at that meeting. But I had, through other connections, different committees I've sat on, met one of the school board members. I contacted her and I said, there's a problem with this policy that you're about to pass. And here's what the problem is. Here's what the law is. And I'd really like to speak to the school board. And so she said, please do. And so at the meeting, there were 100 homeschool people there signed up to speak. And they said, okay, because there's so many, everybody is limited to 3 minutes. But when I got up to speak, I had written out the statute and I was going to go through the key points with them, and I had them pass out the statutes. And the head of the school board member said, well, a lot of y'all didn't take all of your 3 minutes, so I'm going to let her talk as long as she wants to. So I went through the statute with them and explained that their policy was not in compliance with state law. And that if there really was a problem, or if it was a perceived problem, that we would like to work with them to come up with a policy that would benefit both home educators and the school district.
Hmm.
And that I would like for them to form a task force. So that's what they did. And then I met with members of the school board administration, and we worked out a policy that was in compliance with the law. If it hadn't been on a friendly basis and we're trying to help them, but we went in as an adversarial party, I don't know that we would have gotten those kinds of results. So there may be times when a lawyer is important, but my experience over 35 years is that you start out trying to educate the person and help them understand how maybe they're misinterpreting the law. But the law is written so clearly in Florida, and that's one of the best advantages we've got. We go in and argue the law with them. And we have, in fact, I was proffered as a expert witness in a case where the state attorney was not going to allow parents to enroll in a quote umbrella school that was in another county, and they were going after this family with everything they had because they were going to stop it. They were not going to have anything operating in their district like that. Their attorney, they'd had 4 volunteer attorneys or pro bono attorneys. They couldn't understand how home educating parents had such freedom. The attorneys that were representing them, they were baffled at the fact that parents could just direct the whole education and they didn't have to report basically anything to the district. There was no oversight. But I showed in statute the judge, when I got on the stand, I showed the judge the statutes and I explained to him that Florida is not an education state. It's an attendance state. And here's how home educating families meet attendance. And I gave him the statutes, and they basically ruled in favor of the family. And then the state attorney appealed it to the appeals court because they wanted to prove that home education families had to provide an education to their children. They even forced the family to go have the child tested at the FSU Adult Learning Center, which was clearly in the parents' favor because the child had very, I don't know the right word, strong dyslexia. And he could tell you all of the letters. He could tell you how they fit together, but he couldn't read. And so the grandparents had actually reported them to the state attorney. But it was, I was able to explain the laws to the judges, and they sent the case back to the lower court and said, you can go after them on attendance if there's an issue, but you cannot go after them for education. So we won that, and there's a case. It was around 2014. So a lot of it, as I said, it's about education, and we can fight at a legal issue, but if you got the law on your side, there's not much of a fight in Florida.
Yeah.
And let me just say something else about HSLDA. They represent all of the states in the United States. So they see trends in other states that give them great angst, and I can understand that.
Yes.
I don't deal
too.
in any other states. I only lobby in Florida. I don't even keep up with what's going on in other states. So they're on the cautious side because they want to keep the freedom. And I appreciate that. I think we should support them because they work at a federal level. But the way the laws are crafted in Florida, because we're here with a full-time lobbyist, many states, if they have a lobbyist, it's a volunteer lobbyist and they show up in session. They don't build the relationships. They don't track everything. They just, show up occasionally. We keep up with everything, and we are there on the scene making sure that every word, and I mean that literally, in the statute is written correctly so as to maintain the parental rights and everything. And this past session is exactly the reason that I think HSLDA was so concerned about this program is because originally, when it first came out as the first draft, the PEP program was dropped right in the middle of the home education law.
Yes, it was.
And I said, no way, you cannot do it this way. I met with a speaker, I met with the governor's office, and I said, you've got to create a new section if you're going to put this in here, because you have to maintain the rights of parents who don't want to take these scholarships.
Mm-hmm.
And long story short, they did. And then we had input all along the way and making sure the wording was right. I didn't love this program when it first rolled out. Down the
Mm-hmm.
road, I could see that people that were not educated about the freedoms of the home education law would choose money over freedom.
Yep.
Right now, most of our families were on the side of we'd rather have our freedom than money.
Right.
But if we don't have the two options, if in the future they insist on additional regulations or government intrusion like they did in the first bill, which was you have to have a choice navigator to help you direct, which very easily could be somebody that comes into your home. And so I see why HSLDA
Mm-hmm.
has angst about the program.
Yep.
But the key is to stay on top of it. And if that occurs in the future, we're going to be here to sound the alarm for parents
That's
to go
correct.
back into home education so they
That's
don't have
correct.
government intrusion into their home.
100% correct. Yes, absolutely. That's a great point. And Emily chimed back in and said, Brenda, that is a good point about HSLDA seeing trends in other states too. So we're on the same page. In my head, as I was preparing what I was gonna say, I meant to pull that out, but I totally forgot. So I'm glad I asked you to add to it. Your experience is so deep. I think even was it Shara here? She says, when I hear Brenda talk about these situations, I wonder how anyone can ever replace this woman. Us young folks are so far from the level of experience, the years of experience that you have. So we appreciate that. And I appreciate you taking the time to sit with me to divulge all of that experience with me, because while they weren't my lived experiences, I am going to need them to draw on as we move closer to working together and lobbying. So appreciate that. Christy Jackson says, I'm pretty understanding of the issues with Step Up for Students are having, but can we stop saying the problems are because parents are not doing it correctly? I do not get mistakes. I do get mistakes are made on both sides, but identical reimbursement requests with the same exact documentation submitted on same day, one approved, no questions, holds, etc. Two sitting, not touched, not even opened. That's fine. I don't care about what the wait, but it shows there is no date category approval order. So the blame is Step Up for Students. The blame with Step Up for Students is all over the place. I mean,
Okay, so let
that's
me
your. Oh,
let me address that, since I'm the one who said the thing earlier about parents being careful what you submit.
okay.
I never said that the blame was entirely on parents. In fact, I said
Correct.
that they have hired triple the processing staff. They have a lot of new processors, and processors
Yeah.
are getting confused. My caution to parents was to make this process as easy on yourself as possible by making sure you do submit everything that matches. I was never saying that there aren't errors being made on Step Up's end. Obviously, there are. But we can at least mitigate, we can only control what we have control over. We have control what we submit and making sure that what we submit matches the requirements. That's what I was saying. It is true
Right.
that Step Up processors do. So from the tech side, the reason that you could submit the same receipt for multiple children, exact same receipt, or a repeated expense but from the exact same dance studio or whatever, and one time it's approved and one time it's not, is because they don't always go to the same processor. So again, you're dealing with however that processor decides to interpret that receipt.
Right.
But my point that I was trying to make was not
Certainly.
to push all the blame on parents, but
No.
to say that we can only control what we can control. So
Right.
we can try to at least make sure that whatever we're submitting is as clear as possible.
Yeah,
It doesn't
and
mean that if you submit something, it's not going to get an error back. We can't
right.
control that side of it.
And to try to help our community control error as much as possible by pointing
Yeah.
out some of the errors that we know home
And also,
parents
yeah.
have made, right? So
And
that
also
making
because,
sure
like
that
Jason
we
is,
spread the word and they don't.
yeah, and also because, like Jason is saying, we interact with a lot of parents and with Step Up on both sides, and we do know of parents who have been submitting things in the wrong categories or submitting the wrong type of documentation. It is happening.
Yes.
So we were addressing that as well. It's
Yeah,
not
absolutely.
100% an error from either side. It's because home education is so customized.
Mm-hmm.
It's both sides misunderstanding what the drop downs mean and what the terminology means. And so we're just trying to help clarify for parents. And we're also, again, working with Step Up. We have a meeting on Wednesday, again this week,
Mm-hmm.
with the home education instructional program leaders to make sure that on the Step Up side, they understand the needs of the home education instructional programs and how they work and the best way to structure those drop downs and all of that. So just as a clarification, I was never saying it's all because the parents are doing it wrong. That was not my intent of
Right.
what I was
Yeah.
saying.
Yeah. But to the short answer is no. We won't stop pointing out when parents make mistakes that other people can benefit from. We're going to point those out, and hopefully, as we mention them and comb through them, other parents who hear that can benefit from that knowledge. But we're not
Yeah,
trying to lay blame on anybody by any stretch
we're
of the
trying to be
imagination.
helpful. And one of the
Yes.
things the parents can do is become very familiar with the purchasing guide.
Yes.
So not just go to the website, submit something, pick from the drop down menu, but make sure you understand which category it's supposed to go in. And maybe that's a little laborious, but
Yeah.
that's, until we get this program completely automated and the definitions in statute and everybody, including Step Up, understands what goes in what categories, the better
Yeah.
thing the parents can do is become very familiar with that purchasing guide.
Yes. Christy also asks, has anything been said about when the additional funding for UA will be released to Step Up for students in order for them to clear the wait list? The wait
In order
list
in
is
order for them to what?
to clear the wait list. The wait
Yeah,
list, I think, deadline was given up until December 15th, right?
right, right.
Yeah, so it won't be until after that at least.
But they
Did you?
also going to drop more money about that same time. So your second
Yeah.
quarter payment should be coming
Mhm.
in December. I think it goes to Step Up on the 1st, and then they have to get it out by the 15th.
Mm-hmm.
I'd
Deline
have
says,
to look
oh,
back in
sorry.
statute, but I think that's right.
Got you.
Well, I
Deline
know
says, oh, go
I
ahead.
was just going to say for PEP, Q2 funding has already dropped. So
Mm-hmm.
I know some parents are wondering, if they're being moved off the wait list, are they not going to receive funding until
Quarter
quarter
two or
three?
three. Right.
Yeah, so that's a question that
Yeah.
a lot of people have had.
I don't know the answer to that, but I do know that the wait list goes until December 15th. And they,
Yeah,
But
you have
that's
until
for
my,
UA.
December.
That's only
Yeah,
for UA.
for UA, correct. Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah,
you
for
have
UA.
until December 15th to apply for UA if
Yeah.
you wanted to be added to that list.
Yeah. So Dolene says, one of my two children is stuck FESEO. Her sister switched 3 months ago. We were FESEO renewal family, and the private school got their first quarter funds. I withdrew them September 8th. If she doesn't switch before the second quarter funds is dispersed, does that mean she doesn't get those funds at all?
Yes.
Okay. And then Debbie says, also, not just that parents are dumb. Oh, I think she's the drop down thing. Not also not just that parents are quote dumb. Some of the drop down verbiage is confusing as it is new. It is a new program. HEF is helping Step Up understand where there are disconnects. As
Yeah.
parents, we should do our part to make it easy as possible for them. Thank you, Debbie. Thank you for
The
understanding.
wording of the drop downs, by the way, is absolutely confusing. So that's something that we're working. The only place to put in a home education instructional program is to go under home education tuition and fees and then select tuition and then go from there. So that's been confusing parents. They're trying to put it in as curriculum/course, which is actually only for package curriculum. So absolutely the clarification of the actual verbiage on the drop downs is something we're working with Step Up on. That's part of what we're talking about on our Wednesday calls.
I don't know who that Peter guy is, but see you, nerd. Anyway, Sorry, there's someone who came in to troll the comments. I We don't usually see that, but there you go. Melissa Stanchek says, since you are meeting with Step Up, can you mention the fact that after canceling a reimbursement, the money doesn't go back to the account? I have been waiting for 1 month now. Thank you.
Melissa, you said her name was?
Yeah.
Can you go into our forum? We have a post in the PEP FAQ section of our forum that is specifically for like big picture issues that are affecting more than one parent. And that list is something we have shared with the director of PEP at Step Up. And he will be able to see that post and see things that are added to that list. So since our call on Wednesdays is mostly about home education instructional programs, we do sometimes have a chance to talk about other things. I would, if you could, I would love it if you would go into the forum and just add that delay of the reimbursements being credited back once you cancel, add that to the list that we're keeping there in the forum. It's called something like priority issues for PEP or something, the post.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact name of it, but it should be near the top there because it's getting quite a bit of use. So Tiana says, I find it helpful to have the purchasing guide and the parent handbook both out so I can look at it while I submit. That's awesome. Melissa says, okay, thank you. So we'll look forward to that. Tina agrees that Peter needed to be blocked. Christy Jackson says, so November 1st was the cutoff for 1/4, I think quarter one. Wait, I don't understand. So November 1st was cut off for 1/4, 1/4, 1 and 2. So now a quarter, 1 and 2, I think is what she's trying to say. So quarter. Now cutoff being December 15th. Did that move quarter 1 and 2 funding cutoff? Oh, I understand what you're asking. Does that make sense, Brenda? I don't know the answer to it. She says,
I think she's asking, since they extended the application date through December 15th, is it possible for these people to still get quarter 2 funding? I think is what she's asking.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, I don't either. It's definitely a UA question. It doesn't impact PEP at all, though.
Well, it's really a step-up question with DOE.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't see any of that when I read the bill. I did not see anything about the funding in the bill. Now, in the end, they may have put that information in the appropriations bill, but this session was not really about appropriations. This special session that just extended the application time period for the FESUA wait list. So that's something they got to work with the Department of Financial Services and the Department of Education that gets the funds that, and I don't really know the answer to that. It's kind of complicated.
Yeah.
If they can, they will.
Step Up for Students. Step Up for Students does not answer questions to parents, hence why everyone comes here. Yeah, they don't do live streams. For sure. I do think that Step Up for Students would benefit from a, like in the video game world, we have, when a video game is patched, every time there's a patch or an upcoming patch, they release patch notes with every change that goes into it, and then they just kind of duplicate that pattern and then highlight the changes. I think there would be a benefit to them doing something like that. It would take probably a communication director or something position to it.
Well, I think the open houses are intended to be that, but they,
that's a good point.
So far at least, have been providing very generic information. And I mean, sometimes they go more specific, but it's stuff that, as a parent who has been following PEP since July, it's stuff that I've figured out myself already, like how to submit a reimbursement, how to use the drop downs, how to access my scholarship. So it seems to be very introductory stuff, but I think that that's I
You
think
say
that
that
in their
like it's
minds,
not me.
what's needed is
Because like we have
clarity
people
on,
discovering it right now.
right, but what's needed is clarity on what the drop downs say and what they mean, and that's not what they're going into. They're just like, here's where you can find the drop down. Here's where you can click submit. So
Yeah.
I think in their mind, I think the open houses are there, like, we are talking to people about how to do PEP, but
Mm-hmm. But
the
maybe feedback through that would be good.
the more nitty gritty, yes, I do encourage parents, if you attend the open houses, they have an exit survey that pops up because it's like a
Yes.
webinar.
That's a perfect.
And at the end of the webinar, an exit survey pops up that actually says, if you have any feedback on things you'd like to see us address in future open houses, use that box.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
tell them that you would like to see more detailed updates on, because what I'm seeing in our forum are parents who would love to see, like, here's where we are in the process of those who got stuck in the glitch and still haven't been switched. We are still addressing those. They don't even have to like give specifics, but just let people
Right.
know we are still addressing those. Or
Mm-hmm.
we have X number of reimbursements and we're working up through this date this week. It would require some more organization than what I think they currently have, because right now it seems like their reimbursements aren't processed in date order or really
Right.
any discernible order.
You
But
know what
if they
though?
were at least communicating to parents, like, here's what we are doing, then parents wouldn't feel like they're just being ignored. I think it would be
Yeah.
helpful.
And I was gonna say, I think that even a bullet pointed, like, found this glitch fixed, found this glitch fixed, found it, like, even like a patch note bullet pointed kind of thing, parents would see that and
Yeah.
go, "Oh, okay, wow,
Or this
we're
month we're
doing this."
working to improve.
A building trust would be, yeah.
Yeah, like, even if they were just to say something,
Yeah.
this month we're focusing on improving the user interface for Emma. Here are some changes you can expect to see. Like, even just something that simple would at least let parents know where Step Up's attention and energy is going, so that they didn't feel like no progress was being made.
Well, if they want to hire our marketing company as a PR firm, we'll help put that together for them.
But use the feedback form on the exit survey. That's my recommendation to parents.
That's
Attend
excellent.
the open house. You don't
Yeah,
even
that's
have to
great.
attend it live because they do like a replay, but you might have to attend it live to get the exit survey box. So attend the open house, like when they send out the invitation. Usually there's like 3 time slots. You register for one. Even if you just let it autoplay in the background to get to that exit survey box.
Yeah,
Use the exit
Delene
survey
says
box.
she actually attends, but only to do the survey afterwards.
Yeah, see? Just let it autoplay and then fill out the survey at the end and tell them what you want to actually hear.
For sure.
I think one of the problems is Step Up is so large, they have different divisions of people. So they have their tech division, then they have their customer relations division. And if the customer relations division is like me, I don't have a scholarship kid, so I can't get past a certain point on the website. I don't understand what those issues are because I don't see that. I have a
can't
big
experience them.
overview of everything. And I think that's what the customer relations people are doing. They're doing their best, but they need some guidance. And that's what Crystal is saying. Tell them what you need to hear.
Yeah, you
Then
might
they
have to
can
do like Delete
investigate.
and just hop on the call just to take the survey.
Yeah.
Yes. And in the meantime, we're doing the best that we can to communicate more in-depth information as we get it.
Yes.
From
And
about things that are specific to our community, like the home education instructional programs and all of that.
And on that note, we'll bring today's stream to a close because I have a client call I have to get to, and I'm sure everybody else has endured the broadcast or as long as you have, and we appreciate you being with us. If you found it helpful, share it to others. We appreciate the interaction, the comments, the feedback, critical or positive. Either way, like, it's informative, so we appreciate it. Please make use of the forum if you know other people. Obviously, like we all think that their generic step up calls with introductory information are laborious, but believe it or not, I am every week there are parents who have never heard of us and are just dipping their toe into this thing, and I guess haven't heard of it since May. I don't know what rock they're hiding under, but they just came out from it and they need that introductory information.
And be sure and share the
Yeah.
links, Jason, to go back and find the previous live streams we've done, because many parents who come in now need to go back and review what we've already talked about
It's a
before
great
they.
point. Yeah, they are all of those links. If you have something like that that you need to share with someone in the community, all of them are in our video library. Um, you can direct them to, and they should populate right at the top of the Facebook page if you're a visitor. So they should be pretty easy to kind of get to and browse through. But also, if you share the event, because I created all of these live streams under an event on our page. If you feel like sharing the event with them, they'll have immediate access to all previous videos as
And they
well
are on
as
YouTube too,
future
aren't they?
ones. I do send them. Yeah, I do actually also post these on YouTube. So our YouTube channel is the same as it is here. It's FLHEF 1985, and they're all there as well. So if they're in there, they're in a playlist called Ask Brenda live chats. And so if somebody just needs to go and kind of put them on queue and listen and catch up, they're all easily accessible there as well. I don't have anything further. We are still looking for our support. Dina, I see you in the comments. Thank you for bringing ClassSource on again as one of our vendor sponsors. We love you and appreciate you. We will hit our top sponsors one more time with a big thank you, especially to FPEA for being with us, and we'll bring it to a close. Brenda, is there anything else you want to say before we?
Nope, I think we covered everything today.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for being here, watching and listening and participating, and we will see you guys next week. And girls.